Reddit is in therapy. What is one thing that a therapist has told you that changed your view on life? He was my psychiatrist, not my therapist. I was in a bad place. I have panic disorder with agoraphobia. And I had lost my mom to cancer and fell into a bad depression and had let the house slowly go to it. And I wasn't taking care of myself. He said, "You feel like you are in a hole you can't dig yourself out of. But you can't just stay there. No one is expecting you to flip a switch and suddenly be better. It doesn't happen like that. You can't compare yourself to others. You want them. Your goal should be to just do better than you did yesterday. That's something to be proud of. And it's progress." It was such a low goal to me. He wasn't asking much. And I hadn't done much in a while. I went home and worked on decluttering one room. I got rid of quite a lot of stuff. But still had lots more due too. I made a solid effort to drink enough water that day. Yes, it wasn't much compared to others. But it was better than yesterday and I was proud of it when I looked at it that way. The next day I did a little more. Drank my water. Showered. A month into it I had gotten a ton of things done. I was becoming more productive. And I was happier. Now there were days in there where I had a bad day and got next to nothing done. But the setback wasn't hard. Because all I had to do the next day was beat that last day. But I was used to doing more. So my desire to do more was there. Anyways, it's been 2 years since I got that advice and I am no longer embarrassed or ashamed at the state of my home. I was able to get it all clean and keep it like that. Someone could show up unannounced and I wouldn't be embarrassed for them to see it. It's already clean. I sleep better hours. I get up early. The small steps I took paid off. And many of the things I struggled with had become a routine for me. You don't want to die. You just don't want to live in that misery. I attempted suicide when I was 14 and had to go to therapy for 6 months in order to avoid being sent to inpatient treatment. I didn't want to go. For weeks I refused to talk. Eventually, begrudgingly, I began engaging my therapist in conversation. One day he mentioned he had been having a conversation with his own therapist about something and I snidely interrupted him and was like, "You're in therapy? Why should I even listen to you if you need a therapist?" He just looked at me and said very evenly, "You know what? You're not the only person in the world who has problems." It really changed my life. Before that momentum, I was so full of a toxic combination of self-loathing and that belief we have when we're young that the world revolved around me. When I started paying attention, I realized he was right. Everyone was so focused on their own lives that they couldn't care less about whatever asinine thing I was focusing on. It was so freeing to realize not everyone was judging me as harshly as I thought they were, nor was anyone judging me as harshly as I judged myself. That relieved so much pressure and made me a lot less self-absorbed almost instantaneously. Some people are gallon people and some people are pint people. You're a gallon person. You want to give a gallon. And you expect to get a gallon in return. He's a pint person. He only wants a pint. And when you give him a gallon, he doesn't want it. It overflows and is wasted. Then when you expect a gallon to fill you back up, he only has a pint to give. He's never going to be able to give you what you need. You need to find it somewhere else. Or better yet, within yourself. Edit. Thanks for my first gold. My therapist was amazing. But 2 things stuck with me for a long time. 1. You are not boring to listen to. Actually, I quite enjoy talking to you. I like how your brain works. It gave me such confidence to confide in her but also just helped me to love myself and have confidence in myself. This person who listens to so many people each day thinks I'm interesting. 2. I am leaving the job I have now. I cannot take all of my clients with me and I have chosen not to bring you. Not because I don't like you but because I believe you can get better without me now. First my heart was broken. I got dumped by my therapist. She didn't want me in her new practice. But then, after months of replaying the message I finally really heard the last part. And I felt strong enough to stop therapy. I still think about those 2 things often. You use the word should a lot. You should do this. You should do that. You should be better. I want you to take that word out of your vocabulary. From now on, there's no such thing as should. Think instead that there are things you can do and things you can't do. Sometimes you'll hit a wall and find you can't do something. That's okay. Having limits is not a bad thing. Everyone has things they can't do. Think about how you'd treat a friend who told you what you just told me. Wouldn't you be kind to them? Don't you deserve the same kindness from yourself? That helped me not be so hard on myself. Ignoring that I had limits didn't mean they magically went away, and acknowledging them helped me sort my mind out and be easier with myself over things I didn't succeed at. I'm much happier now. I'm not holding myself to impossible expectations. Spelling. The few therapists I had as a child never said any one thing that gave me the snap epiphany to change my views on life, but they helped me immensely by being an adult who would sit down and listen to me as I told them my side of stories. They would agree when I thought people were unreasonable and disagree and offer their own points of view if I was being unreasonable. All I really needed was for someone to listen to me as an equal, and that's exactly what they did. It really helped me reframe the way I looked at my elders as a child and now. She said you don't have to forgive them. Some things are unforgivable. People told me I had to forgive them. All my life. It was like someone gave me permission to be mad at these ducks. How you think affects how you feel. Struggled with anxiety for a very, very long time. My last therapist finally managed to help me realize that anxiety wasn't an isolated thing. It was and is caused by a thought process. I used to think the fear came out of nowhere. My first symptoms being the physical sensations associated with panic. Only after a lot of talking and thinking did I realize that there was always a thought process that came before the panic. I'd never noticed it before. It changed everything for me. However, I have a real hard time with negative thinking and letting it spiral out of control. My therapist explained how thought process will continue down the same path unless you give it another one. So however has become a thing. End every negative thought with however, and think of something that helps. No one really likes me, however. I have a loving boyfriend. I am worthless and lazy. However, I got some chores done today. However really has helped me. You know, you're not responsible for other people's feelings. This was a huge revelation to me, as I had literally been taught my entire life that if someone was unhappy or had a problem, it was my job to fix it. It was the beginning of my learning that much of what I'd learned about the world from my family was way off base. Therapist here, and, as you can expect, I talked to a lot of fellow therapists. Some stuff they've said or whatnot has really helped me. People behave how we do for a reason. Behaviors are functional. Despite what people say, the kid having a constant tantrum or woman who lives for drama generally don't enjoy being that way. It's exhausting. Most things we're currently worried about won't matter in a few weeks, let alone a few months. So is it worth so much energy worrying about now? Relapse isn't just common. It's the overwhelming majority. Falling is okay, but get back up. Small changes are usually the best way to get a big result. For example, if you want to go to the gym more, you just need to take small initial steps. For example, put on your gym shoes, and it'll help start the momentum toward actually going. Me, I don't really get along with my family, but I don't want to be one of those cliches who blames their parents for their problems. Therapist, maybe it's a cliche because it's true for many people, was my first step to realizing I was being abused and gaslighted. I don't believe you. I was working with a job coach to find a fulfilling next job, and had just given my very honest reasons, and shown how maturely and openly I was being. I'd perfected this I can be vulnerable mask over the years, and she was the first person to challenge it. Boom. Mask detonated like a grenade, and I needed some time to figure out what my emotions actually were. Worth it, though. Anxious of student debt, one therapist helped me reframe that thinking as an investment to my education. Another therapist asked me if I say the same things to others that my ex said to me. I've used this one on Reddit a lot. My therapist knows I'm an analytical person, so he put it this way: your emotions exist to motivate your behavior, and they do a pretty good job of it. Since they've helped all kinds of animals survive up to today, but they come from the most ancient part of the brain and they're not very sophisticated. They can be like the smoke alarm that goes off when you're cooking in the kitchen. You'd rather have the smoke alarm give you a few false alarms than to fail to alert you to a real fire. So with an emotion, you can say thanks. Jealousy, shame, anxiety. I know this situation seems scary and you're just trying to protect me, but what you don't know is, and then fill in those facts that your conscious mind is aware of, but that your emotions aren't taking into account. Let's go for a walk. I'd been suffering for about a year with depression. Basically just dropped out of life and lay in bed all day. None of the medications seemed to be working and I had developed an intense aversion to exercise. One day my psychologist asked me to go for a walk during the session. I really didn't want to go, but I was too embarrassed not to. As we walked down the street and talked, it felt like all of my angst regarding exercise kind of just melted away. He asked me to try and get some exercise every day and I did. For 3 years straight. I credit the exercise as the key to my recovery. Anxiety has no power. It is merely a feeling. A thought like any other. It cannot hurt you. Being anxious about an anxious feeling causes infinite anxiety. Instead, acknowledge it as merely a thought and allow it to pass. It hasn't changed my life per se, but something that has helped a lot was when I was asked to examine where the expectations I place on myself come from. I had a lot of do's and don'ts ruling how I acted and rarely interrogated them. Often they would come from a person I didn't care about much anymore, or an abstract idea of what was right or wrong that was tenuously attached to reality. It hasn't changed my life to examine these expectations in this way, but has reduced some of the pressure they put on me. Edit, a word. She asked me, "What do you want?" And it was such an eye-opener to have someone ask me that. No one had asked me that before. Not even myself. My initial thought was, who cares what I want? And that's exactly what she wanted me to realize. She concluded that I've been lonely my entire life because I've never had a real emotional connection with anybody. Took some time to realize how right she is. Hit me like a train as well. But now we can go forward towards a solution knowing this. It was my sister, not my therapist. I was beating myself over the head for misunderstanding a conversation and causing a bit of chaos online in my social group about it. They were all insisting I owed them each an individual apology for it after the ones I'd already given them, and were going as far as to subsnap and share around the misunderstanding to everyone they knew of. I was going round apologizing to them individually in person, as I felt like that had more meaning than over a text. I shown my sister the messages and told her I was going to carry on with the apology tour the following morning. She stopped me. "You've already apologized for your mistake. Don't apologize for your disability. You can't change what you did. And after growing up with you, I know that you can't prevent it from happening again. The problem isn't that you've yet to discover a way of becoming normal. The problem is that they aren't accepting you for who you are. That problem will only go away by when they start to." Apologizing repeatedly for something you can't control both fixes nothing and buries everything. It really got to me what she said, because for the first time ever I truly felt that someone who wasn't autistic understood what I was dealing with. It made me think about the last few months, and how people have been using my disability against me, disregarding my opinions because I struggle to follow conversations, or ending conversations entirely by demanding I take more meds. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and since then I've been the happiest I've been in a long time. I'm in a much better place now because of her. There were 2 therapists that did this for me. The first one I didn't see for long, but he told me one day there's no such thing as good or bad emotions. Emotions are what they are, and they're there, but they're amoral. It helped me to not view my emotions as something to be scared or ashamed of. Now, instead of focusing on trying to push that emotion back, I work on how to control my reaction to it. The second was my favorite. I've suffered from mental illness for pretty much my whole life, and I was getting exhausted. I had been fighting for so long, and I didn't see a way out. I asked her if I was ever going to be okay, or would my whole life be a struggle to stay afloat. Since I had bared some of my ugliest emotions to her and she had helped me work through a lot, she was the first person I believed when she said, "Yes, there is better than this. You'll be in therapy for the next 10 years. And it's going to be tough as it, but you're getting through this." No one cares. Sounds kinda mean, but it's true and it helps. No one cares that you may be a little overweight or whatever. Not a therapist. but just my GP. I was having loads of health-induced anxiety that started from a terrible panic attack I had years ago. My heart was skipping. And I knew it. And no one believed me. Husband thought I was crazy. Doctors ignored me. You're 27. You don't have heart issues. Went through a few until one finally listened and had me do the week-long monitor. Results came back that I was having irregularities in a sinus rhythm. Noticeable, but pretty much harmless. That was all it took. Someone listening and just believing me for half a second. Proving to myself more than anyone that I wasn't crazy and imagining it. Went from a mini panic attack every time I felt a skip to being able to acknowledge it and let it pass. I was able to start doing things again because I wasn't so afraid. Like go grocery shopping or driving more than 15 minutes. Life changing just to have someone believe you. I was blaming myself for things I did as a child. Carrying this feeling of guilt for a very long time. My therapist just told me, you were a child. You did the best you could. And just like that, a load of weight fell off my shoulders. And now I can work on building the life I want. Not something my therapist told me, but she said a lot of similar things, so I'm going to post it anyway. Your feelings are real, not reality. Really helped me to see that just because I feel a certain way it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, and also that it's okay to feel like that even if it's not true. Why do you have to save everyone? Why do you Ray 43 have to be the sole arbiter of good and right in your world? And surprisingly, this came at a time in my life where I was not great at self-care and I was fresh off a suicide attempt. And I didn't feel like I deserved much of, well, anything. I was struggling with the fact that I thought the only way I could make the world better was through leading by example. Doing what I thought was equitable and right. Even if no one noticed. Or worse, cared. And the problem therein is that it meant I was letting a lot of assholes be assholes without calling them out. Justifying their behavior in my head by advocating for their shortcomings and struggles in life and how it might lead to bad behavior. Comparing it to my own struggles and low self-worth. And over I forced myself to take the high road. Or get taken advantage of. It's supremely obvious in hindsight. Or outside observation. But the revelation that living to fight another day was not evil or selfish was profound to me. I, and you, are not Superman. It is okay to do as much as your emotional and mental stamina allows, and then recover. The image that I was a burden for existing was self-inflicted fiction at least 90% of the time. Probably more, wherever and whoever you are. Know this, you are not alone in trying to make the world better. And to be better, take the day off from your burdens. I've got this one. When suffering with anorexia, my therapist told me, right now you're just surviving through life, but with recovery you can fully live your life. It wasn't much but helped me realize how poor I had made my quality of life. I made a dream board of all my goals and things to look forward to. Things like learning to drive, traveling, dyeing my hair, going to uni. It helped me see what I was working towards and eventually make a full recovery. Probably not the answer this question was looking for. Therapist messed up my life for a while. I went into the doctor to get ADHD medication. Well, ask about it. Because I was having trouble paying attention in class. The doctor said that I had to go to their therapist to get the medication. So I went to this therapist and she brought a whole mess of examples to convince me that I had social anxiety. She continually told me, you economy cactus, you are mentally ill, this is a mental illness you have. But nothing to be ashamed of. To be clear with all of you, I did not have social anxiety and I do not have it now. I am one of the most outgoing, willing to talk to anyone guys you will ever meet. I did sales for years and loved it. But at the time, I was really young and in a vulnerable position and I believed her. I looked up what social anxiety was, what the symptoms were, and they became my life. For the better part of 2 years I was a mess, an absolute mess. I analyzed every conversation and thought about it repeatedly so hard that I would forget that I'm supposed to speak. I felt like I was on drugs because this was so surreal for me. It took me the better part of 2 years to shake it, get out of it and get back on track. I have no semblance of social anxiety now, but it do I feel for people that have it. It is all consuming. This all happened to me because of this therapist that felt like she could diagnose me after a 15-minute conversation. After I had spent several sessions talking about my ex-husband, going over details of how he abused me in various ways, my male therapist said, "It sounds like the relationship was only about 6 to him." Upon hearing that, a tiny atomic explosion went off in my head. I had spent years trying to figure out what the hell I had done wrong in the marriage to cause my ex to abuse me, even though I know from book learning, that abuse is not the victim's fault, that a sane, caring, loving person can and will learn to walk away from the situation if they feel so angry they can't control themselves. But I had been told it was all my fault so often by my abuser that I had deeply internalized what he said. It was the tape playing in my head. When that therapist said that, it rang so true. It explained so much. It explained everything. It's also as depressing as hell to comprehend I had been used that way for so many years. I guess the therapist had to judge if I was strong enough to hear that, because it's a devastating thing to tell a woman who devoted herself to a long-term marriage. Be kind to yourself. I grew up in an abusive household. The awful things I was told growing up became the voice in my mind. You're stupid. You always duck up. You're a loser. You're a piece of it, etc. I realized I was abusive to myself. I started to listen closely to that voice and I reinvented it. I began forgiving myself for any mistakes. I praised myself when I succeeded. Made a huge difference in my life. Your mom is a monster. It may seem simple, but hearing that helped me get over the guilt of going no contact with my parents. I excused the behavior for so long. I saw my mom start with tactics to isolate my kids by making them feel wrong for spending time with their friends. I shut that fast. My mom got nasty and I was not going to take it, but she went way over the line and threatened to file a false claim with CPS to try to gain custody of my kids. That is a hard no. She texted my husband to say she was going to sue us for grandparents' rights and wouldn't it be cheaper if we just met up? Nope. Then she claimed she was coming up when we told her she wasn't welcome. We called the police. I don't know if I would have without the support of my therapist. What evidence do you have that supports that belief? It's a small but powerful thought that has changed my very existence and helped reduce my anxiety dramatically. So many people are afraid of it that won't ever happen, or worrying about stuff that they think happened but didn't. You have no idea why your friend is not replying to your text, but you have no evidence it's anything to do with you. It's more likely they're eating or reading or their battery died or whatever. You don't know why that girl didn't want to go on another date with you. Maybe it's because you suck, but you don't know. There's no evidence. Could just as easily be that you are too good a person and she wants a coke hookup, not a boyfriend. It's the basis on cognitive behavioral therapy, using evidence to challenge damaging thoughts. I used to be socially anxious. Now it's easy, mostly because I realize no one gives a duck now. Oh, another huge thing I learned was how school 13-18 specifically completely ducks you up if you are unlucky. If you are near it bags, they can ruin your brain. It's annoying how much of my adult life has been unlearning it I learned as a teen. You are not special. Sounds really mean, but it was actually really freeing. I'm not responsible or required to be better than other people. Plus, it meant that I'm not so special that I suck more than other people either. There's a degree of narcissism associated with thinking you are really worse than everyone else out there. I was trying hard to justify staying in a 40-year-long dismal marriage and the therapist told me sometimes, it is what it is and not what you would hope it to be. I have had the happiest 4 years of my life being on my own now. What other people think of you is none of your business. No one is going to think about you as much as you think about yourself. You talk a lot about what you should do, what is expected from you, but I haven't heard you say what you want. You seem to have higher demands for yourself than for others. Not a statement but a concept. Prioritize self-care alongside chores and life. Do not wait until everything is done to care for yourself. You have to do it along the way. Otherwise you will never actually invest that time in your own well-being. If things are to change, then I must change was given to me as a motto. I was a teenager and not good at accepting my own responsibility for things, or accepting that I had the power to change my situation, which teenagers don't have 100% control over their lives, but still, I would come to need that framework as an adult. Just a little reminder that I can go out there and take action. Most children who abuse other children sexually were once victims of abuse. Now I'm not saying that justifies what happened to me, but it definitely made me feel a lot better about the situation. I've had many years to process my abuse, and looking at the facts with adult eyes, I wasn't the only victim. Do I forgive? No, but I understand. Not completely life-changing, but the best advice I've gotten so far is to take things one step at a time. Am I stuck in bed with depression that day? Think of I could do that I need to do to become happier, and take one step towards it. It's okay if I don't actually wind up doing the thing that day. I just gotta try. Like crafts can help me feel better, but actually working on a project seems overwhelmingly tiring. So I just gotta get myself up to do something like pull out the supplies I need. Then I can go lay back down. Enough tiny steps and I will eventually be doing the thing. Stop justifying your eating habits. I am anorexic and was a big denier of it until my therapist told me that. Now I am trying to fix it but still find it hard to not slump back into forgetting to eat. I told her that I was okay, that I was managing. She told me that I'd spent so much of my time trying to survive, that I wasn't even trying to aim for happiness anymore. I was out of the deepest depths of my depression, but I had told myself I was okay when I had so much further to go. All because I'd completely forgotten what it was like to live a life that was more than just staying alive. Always have a purpose for your behavior. If you cannot explain why you are behaving the way you are behaving, it's time to stop.